From BQE Restaurant and Lounge in the heart of Atlanta's historic Martin Luther King District, it's Newsmakers Live, bringing you the issues, politics, and perspective of the Atlanta community. Now in its 10th season, here is tonight's moderator and your host, 8-time Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist, Mr. Maynard Eaton.
To Newsmakers, I agree with Jim. This is one of our better nights because we have one of the better, if not the best, candidate running for mayor. The election night will prove that. His name is City Council President Ceasar Mitchell. Thank you so much.
Oh, man, thank you for having me.
Led the city in the number 2 position delicately and strategically for the last 8 years. And that smile has always been captivating.
Oh, man, thank you.
But you've also been tough of late about what's happened in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
You led the way saying there's corruption at City Hall.
Well, what I led the way saying was just a simple policy recommendation. And what's happened in the aftermath, I think, has revealed that we are dealing with a serious crisis of corruption. No one wants to talk about or have to admit that we are in a moment of crisis right now. But, you know, a month or so ago, I made a recommendation that any non-emergency contracts that don't expire till next year not be handled now, and that we finish the business of today, and not try to do the business of tomorrow today, particularly with a federal investigation going on. And, of course, that engendered a significant amount of personal attacks that came out of the administration, which I thought were unfortunate and not in keeping with the dignity of city government and where we want to be as a city.
You and Mayor Reed have been in a bitter feud, it seems. Is it because you were leading at the time, or because you seemed to threaten his candidate?
Oh, we're in a very strong position now, so I don't think that has anything to do with it. But I mean, I don't know. He has his own politics. Of course, he's come out and endorsed another candidate, and many have interpreted his willingness to attack me so viciously on things that have nothing to do with policy or city government, but more politically is connected to what he's doing with his endorsed candidate.
But your relationship has been testy for 8 years.
Well, you know, there's a certain kind of tension that naturally exists between the office of council president and the mayor, because, you know, you have two different branches of government. But here's the deal with me, man. I've always tried to approach my work as a statesman, as someone who works with others with civility, try to engender trust not only in my colleagues but in the public, and that's something I've always done. I've got to call balls and strikes. I got to call it like it is, and I'm never going to back down from that. And I've never backed down from that as a council member, and certainly not as council president. And it doesn't matter who the conversation, the discussion, the debate, or even the disagreement is with. I'm going to raise the issue that needs to be raised and make the point, and not let vitriol back me down or back me away. We're going to call it like it is.
Council President Mitchell, during your tenure, which many applaud, there are those who say the mayor tried to circumvent you or undermine you, go around you with regard to council issues. Did you find yourself thwarted by the administration?
I worked well with the administration when the issues were important issues that were before us as a city that we had to grapple with. I provided leadership when it came to pension reform, when it came to resolving the dispute between the Beltline and the Atlanta public school system. I provided leadership and a calm voice of reason. And so for me, it's really about providing leadership and providing leadership that gets things done and sets aside a lot of silliness. And I've worked well with my colleagues on council, and I have worked well with folks beyond City Hall. I sit on the board of the Atlanta Regional Commission. I'm not a bench warmer there. I actually served on the task force that actually just released the current 5-year strategic plan. When business needs to get done with ARC, they call on me to be a part of the leadership to get it done. I sit on the statewide board of the Georgia Municipal Association, which is a statewide organization of leadership on the municipal level. And on that board, I chair revenue and finance. And so in that role, they call on me to get things done. They know that I'm someone who can work with them in a civil way, a collaborative way, and get things done.
But even in public events where the two of you appear, and I've covered you for years, there seems to be a chilliness or distance. And is that personal, you think, with him?
No, I mean, I can't speak for that. I'm a father. I am a husband. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I love people, and I love working with people. I love interaction. I love teamwork. I grew up playing sports, man, and any team I was on, I typically ended up being the captain of the team because I know how to lead. but not just lead, but also lead as a part of a team, understanding that leaders actually sometimes have to follow. And so that's the spirit I bring to anything that I do. And so that's what I bring to the table, and that's what I'm going to bring to the table as mayor of the city.
Is that what you're bringing to this campaign? That's interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about leading a city, you have to be able to get things done. And I keep saying that. There's a job to be done, and when I'm mayor, I'm going to get the job done. There are a lot of folks that are talking about what they're going to do. They're espousing a track record that really is someone else's track record. Running for mayor means you got to stand before people and tell folks not only what you're going to do, but you got to have some credibility based upon what you have done. So I stand firmly on 2 feet on. With respect to my track record. And I challenge anyone to challenge my track record of leadership, my track record of service, and really my temperament as I get things done. I can be very firm, but I don't have to be someone that's thin-skinned and trying to always one-up somebody, because I believe in the win-win. When we create a win-win in the city, our city becomes a better city. That's the kind of city we're going to have when I'm mayor.
Have you had a chance to show that, to say that? That those who say perhaps some of taking the wind out of some of your sails. I mean, because you got like to see you tonight is the way you've been.
Maynard.
But there's some who suggest you've not been that way.
Maynard, listen, I've run 4 times citywide. I have not lost. And so that's important. You know what I'm saying? And so, when it comes to getting things done and winning, I know how to win. And I don't have to beat my chest winning. You just win. You follow me? And two of those 4 races had contested runoffs, heated runoffs, and I won. And so, understanding the art of winning is important. And winning doesn't mean you run around and scream, "I'm winning," because a lot of folks scream they're winning and they're not winning. You just got to be about the business of winning. And when I'm mayor, I'm going to win for people. For me, this is all about service. My grandmother taught me what it means to serve, really what it means to love through service. She was a woman who was in her 70s when I was a young boy. And we would get up and we would go and we'd do Meals on Wheels in the community. And I would always wonder why my grandmother, who was arthritic, who was a breast cancer survivor in the time when there was no plastic surgery for breast cancer, and she would get up and we'd go out and we serve. But that was her way of showing love to people and to this city and to this community. That's what I learned.
Your father served too.
My father served. My father served in a time when it was tough to be a black police officer in the Atlanta Police Department. But he leaned in. He walked a foot beat, and he walked a foot beat when a foot beat wasn't cool. But he took something that was intended to punish him, and he turned it into something good. He leaned in. He provided leadership as a founder of the Afro-American Patrolmen's League and fought for equal pay, equal promotions, and equal treatment in the police department. Now, he didn't get out here and beat his chest and say, "I'm winning." He got the work done. And what people have told me about my father is incredible stories of how he was a peacemaker, but he didn't back down. I'm my father's son.
Very well said.
It's the truth.
Talking about police, and the headlines in the paper recently, a lack of police. In fact, we're losing police, it seems.
Yes.
Is that going to be a problem for us among the many others? But do we need better policing or more policemen? Are they fleeing the city because of lack of money?
I think we gotta treat police officers well, but we also have to make sure that we put them in an environment where they can succeed. My father walked a footbeat in Perry Homes, and when he walked that footbeat, he took care of young kids who were in the community who needed someone to look up to. He protected senior citizens. So while he was preventing crime through having real relationships, he was also creating strong relationships in the community, police community relationships. And so I think we've got to take that kind of approach. Saying we're going to have 2,500 police officers, that's a great goal, and certainly I'd love to set that goal as mayor, but I'm going to focus on how we police. How we police is important. So when a police officer can be in a community working with young kids, being a mentor to young kids, I think we can actually start to prevent crime. We can reduce recruitment into gangs. That's the kind of policing we've got to have in our city. So our police officers have got to feel good about being in the department. So a couple of things you can do with that. Number one, you can pay them well. And so when I'm mayor, we're going to make sure police officers are paid in a competitive fashion. But we're also going to make sure our firefighters are paid in a competitive fashion. proud to be endorsed by the progressive firefighters in this race. And so what we're going to do is ensure that police officers and firefighters are working together, and we're going to turn every fire station into a mini police precinct where police officers are stationed, and they walk and go through the community with firefighters in partnership.
But you've also heard, very well said, you've also heard that policemen want to be able to police and not be handcuffed and able to curb crime or work with our youth.
So there's incredible technology that is available for policing now. I mean, it's incredible technology. You'd be surprised. Predictive policing, the use of cameras, shot spotter, as well as license plate readers. It really is creating a whole new brave world, so to speak, as it relates to crime prevention and crime detection and really solving crimes. I think that's going to be very important for police officers to be supported by that. But we also got to lower the cost of being a police officer. So what does that mean? If you're a police officer and you live in the city, you should be able to have a take-home car. If you're a police officer who's out here on the beat and you get a rip in your pants, you should not have to pay for that. You should be able to go to the commissary, the quartermaster, and get a new pair of pants without having to pay for it. If you want to live in the city, you should be able to get a home at an affordable rate. When I'm mayor, I'm going to have a program called Blight to Light. In this city, we have at least 10,000 vacant and abandoned homes. We're going to go get those homes. The city is going to be in the real estate business. We're going to take these homes and we're going to turn them into places where police officers, firefighters, other law enforcement, teachers, nurses, the creative class, our senior citizens and young families can stay in an affordable fashion.
Is that your answer to affordable housing?
That's part of it. That's one way we're going to create 10,000 of the 50,000 new affordable units.
Is that doable though? So we hear the
much.
word a lot.
Yes.
Affordable. A lot of people preach it. Few have done it. You've been on the firing line.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, I practice real estate law. I've done that for 22 years, and I practice that alongside being an elected official. So I understand the law, I understand the business, and I understand the policy of creating affordable housing. So as a lawyer, I've worked with clients who've generated affordable housing in this city, thousands of units for seniors and young families. As a council member, I've passed legislation creating the kinds of incentive tools that allow for affordable housing to be created in this city. When I'm mayor, we're going to create through the Blight to Light program 10,000 new units. When I'm mayor, we're going to take the land that we have at the Atlanta Housing Authority and we're going to create another 20,000 units of affordable housing. And I think we got to do this. We've got to make sure people understand what affordable housing is.
Yeah.
It's not just housing for people who make 30% or less of area median income. Affordable housing or affordable living includes people who make 100% of area median income. That's your teachers, your firefighters, your police officers, your officers, your nurses. They make that amount of money, but they can't afford to buy in the city if we don't really lean in and provide affordable opportunities inside the city.
Something many people don't understand is, yes, as mayor, I guess you're the leader and can possibly make that happen. But as a number two guy or a city council member, why couldn't that have happened previously?
Well, first of all, the executive power. See, what we do as councils, we generate legislation. And I got a strong body of legislation. The city has 10 tax allocation districts, which are really essentially community revitalization zones. Of the city's 10, I created 4 of them. And so that's policy you put in place. But it takes a strong executive who understands how to build communities from the ground up to actually use that tool and make something happen. That's why I'm running for mayor, so I can have the ability of the executive office to actually make some of these things happen. As a council member, I've been very effective. I mean, I've passed legislation requiring all police officers to spend 8 weeks on a foot beat when they come out of the police academy. But again, you got to have a police chief and a chief executive that actually utilizes that to create real community policing. So the council does what it's supposed to do. As council president, I've been very entrepreneurial. Even though the office is really about appointing committees, appointing committee chairs, and running the meeting, I've gone a step further. And I've had for 12 years a college prep series, which is about getting kids one step closer to college and career. That's not in my job description, but that's in my heart. So I've done it for 12 years. It's not in my job description to have a program called the Atlanta Back to Business seminar, where we actually have grown from one 3-hour event to now it is a 3-day event. And we had 2,000 people registered this year, when the first year we only had 100 people registered when we started out. But that's about connecting small business owners to opportunities in city government, to relationships in city government. But also it's grown into creating relationships in the private sector, 50 to 60 to 70 private sector companies. That's the entrepreneurship of my leadership. leadership. And that's the kind of entrepreneurship I'm going to bring to the office of mayor.
It sounds like what you wanted to do and some of the council members want to do has been stymied by this administration. Has this been a failed administration?
I'm not commenting on that. I mean, I'm going to just focus on what I believe is the work of this office that I have right now, and I'm going to serve in that role until December 31st, and I'm going to call balls and strikes until then. But I truly believe that as mayor going forward, I'm going to set a new tone. I'm going to set a tone where temperament is something that's based upon civility and being a statesman, working with others and collaborating, not always having to be right, knowing sometimes you're going to be wrong, standing up and being accountable, transparent, open and fair, taking the politics out of things that shouldn't have politics in it, and making sure that everyone
has... Is it possible to take the politics out?
It is possible.
That's nice to say.
It is possible. That is possible to do that. You know, give everyone a fair playing field. That's what everybody wants. And that's how you make city government better. And that's how you make the work product of city government better, by making sure that everyone has a fair playing field. And when they know they have a fair playing field, they're going to put their best product forward. They're going to actually participate in the process. And when you have people participating in the process, you're probably going to get the best product coming out of that competition. And so I just believe that's incredibly important. And I think there are ways you can do that to ensure that you have fairness and openness in the process.
Fairness and openness. The mayor's been critical of you for some campaign contribution problems. Could you talk about that?
I mean, I think that was a deflection. I raised the issue that we're dealing with a crisis in government right now, a federal investigation. I made a policy recommendation that we not act on contracts that don't expire till this time next year. How suspicious is that? That you're going to try to pass contracts that don't expire till this time next year. Let that be for the next administration. And so, you know, that's a policy suggestion that takes politics out of the procurement process. Now, when I made that recommendation, I didn't know that the former procurement officer was going to plead guilty to bribery. I did not know when I made this recommendation that a few weeks later you would have one of the big contractors bidding on one of these very contracts, 4, matter of fact, of the 10 contracts that don't expire till this time next year, have his offices raided by the FBI. And also be identified as the one who actually was bribing the former chief procurement officer. And then also connected to one of the candidates running for mayor by having given them almost $30,000 in campaign contributions. And so from my perspective, you know, I just called balls and strikes, and it ended up being prophetic. And so when I made that recommendation, which was a common sense one, I made it in good faith. And look what's happened since.
Is it pay to play in Atlanta politics?
Man, you know, when I'm mayor, we're going to make sure there's no pay to play. We're going to make sure that we have someone in the role of what I call an independent compliance officer, independent of the mayor's office, independent of the council, that has the ability to do good training, has the ability to put great processes in place, but most importantly, has the power to eradicate waste, fraud, and abuse and corruption in city government, and do that in an unfettered fashion to eliminate even the perception that there's pay-to-play politics.
As a Morehouse man, as a son of Atlanta, son of an Atlanta policeman, that's got to bother you, man. I mean, that's the perception, and seemingly that's been the fact.
Absolutely. That bothers me tremendously. And my father was not only an Atlanta police officer, he was an ordained minister. My mom spent a year in seminary. She was a school teacher. You know, teachers have to teach young people how to do right and wrong, and she always demanded that of me as her son.
They don't make much doing
Exactly.
That.
You know, my uncle, ordained minister, an educator, college president. You got to have certain morals and values and ethics of service when it comes to being in those roles. My father-in-law is a retired federal agent. Do you think my father-in-law is going to let me come into the house if I can't say I'm standing up to corruption in city government? No. And so, I come from a family of folks who believe in doing the right thing. When you make a mistake, you stand up and say you made a mistake, but you be transparent at all times. And that's how I've conducted myself, not only on council, but my entire life.
What you did with regard to the contributions, you made a mistake and moved on.
Oh, absolutely. It was late filings of disclosure. Right. It was nothing more than that. It was
something made more of that.
Yeah, it was something made more of that because someone was doing someone else's political dirty work. And I think a lot of that's going to come out in the next couple of weeks.
One of your opponents said race frames this election. Mm-hmm. Does this quote-unquote pay-to-play, quote-unquote dirty politics make race a factor? Does it discolor perhaps some of the good deeds black elected officials have done?
I think we deal with race on so many levels, and it runs across so many threads of our community. And I think, we can talk about other issues, but until we're willing to deal with the issue of race, it really more importantly, kind of how race presents itself and how we interact, how business gets done, how we treat one another, how we don't treat one another when we should be actually engaging with one another. Until we're ready to deal with how race presents itself as a cancer in our city, I don't think we're going to make any progress. Just talking about race is not enough. When you talk about race and racism, it has its impacts. When children are born in this city into poverty, and because of their poverty and really effectively their race, they can't get a quality education, then we're dealing with race, but we got to deal with that issue. When you have minority-owned companies, small businesses, women-owned companies that can't get access to capital because of structural and discrimination and structural racism, then you got to deal with that. So I think in our city right now, race is certainly an issue, as it is in the country right now. And I think there are a lot of dog whistles being blown, giving people kind of comfort to be more overt as it relates to their racist tendencies. And we got to push back on that as a community. And I think Atlanta can lead the way, given our history, given how we not only pursue the great opportunities that have been presented to this city, but also how we tackle the tough moments. Atlanta has proven that it has the ability to do that. When I'm mayor, I'm going to utilize every aspect, every relationship that I have in this community, from my work in the civic community, the business community, on neighborhood level, and in government, to make sure we keep this city together and make it strong.
Ceasar, I've been writing and reporting about politics since you came to office, but yes. I was stymied. Didn't have an answer for you. Young family guy said to me, yeah, you argue in favor of all these black politicians we've had. He was 32 years old. All these black politicians. He said, but the bluff ain't changed. Mm-hmm. He said, what have black politicians done for us? I was stymied for a minute to give him an answer. Is that a problem right now?
I think there's a perception there, but I think it goes back to what I believe is almost kind of a lack of understanding of the larger context. Capital changes communities. Money changes and revitalizes communities. And that's why, as a council member and council president, I've always, through my legislative initiatives, tried to create mechanisms within city government where we could leverage capital to have impacts on communities in a positive way, creating the community revitalization zones known as TAZ, making sure that we've got strong affordable housing policies and initiatives like the Beltline, making sure that we're putting in place certain mechanisms at Invest Atlanta, which is our economic development agency that supports investment in small businesses. That's how city government can help. But here's what city government needs to do a better job of, and this is what I'm going to do as mayor. We got to make sure we're delivering the basic services. Delivering the basics cannot be seen as small ball. And when I'm mayor, delivering basic services will not be small ball. It will be a priority. So here's one thing I'm going to do. First 100 days, I'm going to get 100 employees assigned to a specific task for this 100 days. And we're going to clean, that is, pick up trash in this city for 100 days along 100 square miles of this city, so that after 100 days, everybody in this city knows that our city is 100% cleaner. It's called 100 days.
And that young man will have something to see.
So that young man will be able to see. So when you live in your neighborhood and you can see that your neighborhood is clean, then what are you going to do? You're going to make sure you keep it clean. And then when folks come and visit your neighborhood who have money to spend, like capital to invest, see that you're keeping the neighborhood clean, the city is partnering with you to keep the neighborhood clean, then they're going to be more likely to invest. And I think that's the kind of thing that city government needs to be focused on. The small things do matter.
But we now see the big things. We see the big Mercedes Stadium. We see all these big construction things. And we didn't echo the tale of two cities. Is this really an unequal balance here? What do you tell the black community now with all the things going on over here on the north side? You
got to have a mayor that's going to look for the win-win and not back down from corporate powers that be about getting the win-win. I mean, I can tell a lot of stories that I'll defer on right now. I'll tell you one, though. When the Phillips Arena deal was put before the city council,
yes, sir,
for us to do a nearly $200 million renovation, I demanded and negotiated with the mayor to get $5 million committed up front for investment in the communities around Turner Field. with a $10 million commitment. When I'm mayor, we're going to turn that into $25 million to be invested in affordable housing, community development, bringing retail and other types of economic development to that particular neighborhood. We've got to use moments like stadiums and renovations and new stadiums. We got to use those moments as an opportunity to create win-wins, to create real community benefits. I mean, people talk about community benefits, but I was the first council person, the first elected official in the city of Atlanta to put community benefits in a legislative package called the Beltline. It didn't exist as a legislative requirement until I did that as a council member. And so we've got to make sure we have that same kind of spirit coming out of the work that we do on the executive side. And that's, again, why I am running for mayor.
President Mentor, the last time I interviewed you, we were in a senior citizen high-rise in Buckhead.
Yes.
And you heard the fear there, the fear amongst some black senior citizens that we're losing this city. We're losing the grip, the political control, the political clout that black folks, they had while they were living here. How do you ease that concern?
Well, I think we got to ease that concern by showing leadership that's getting our young people a good education. So when our senior citizens who are black see that children are not breaking in their homes but in staying in school, then they're going to start feeling better about our city. And so that's why I've been very committed to my work with young people all these years. You've
been pretty good with senior citizens too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because first of all, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the love of my grandmother. I would not. There's no way I would be sitting here. And she taught me how to serve. And so we got to make sure that we provide our senior citizens with an opportunity to age gracefully in place. I was the first elected official, and I was reminded of this, to actually hire a senior liaison in my office as a council member, because I understand how important it is for us to pay attention to and be there for our senior citizens, because they were there for us, and they created the city that we live in now and benefit from. And so if you're a young person in this city and you're concerned, or if you're a senior citizen and you're concerned about the future of this city and whether or not there's going to be political leadership that looks like your sons, looks like your daughters, then let's get together and let's fight together to ensure that every child in this city graduates from high school, college ready, career ready, or ready to be an entrepreneur right out of the gate.
Finally, you talk about your dad. Wasn't they over here in the old Butler Street Y where the policemen changed uniforms back in the day when they first came on the force? But that's also where the Jesse Hills and many others sat around the table and said, who's going to be the next black candidate for mayor? Those senior citizens yesterday said, why haven't they done that this time? Why are so many of our good young black candidates fighting against each other? There's a fear that you all knocking each other off.
Well, I mean, I think it's attractive to run for mayor if you want to go to Hollywood, but if you really want to serve, then you're going to look for a leader like me, someone who has a proven track record, someone who's won citywide 4 times, someone who has the ability to work with others in a collaborative fashion, not only here in the city of Atlanta with organizations in the nonprofit sector, but also with the school system in Fulton County, but someone who has reach beyond the city, around the region, around the state, and even around the country. I practice law with the world's 2nd largest law firm. I can hit 5 buttons on my phone and talk to somebody in Australia, point blank. And so this city needs a mayor who understands that we are, in fact, moving towards being a global city, but also understands how important and how powerful and how impactful it will be for our city to grow from the ground up. There's no flower that blooms from the top down. You plant a seed, it grows from the bottom up, from the ground up. And so I believe I bring that unique set of skills. I believe that I bring to bear a unique qualities and characteristics that will allow for this city to move forward and be that city that's unrivaled around the planet, but at the same time understand how important it is to uplift our young people in this city, get them away from gangs, give them great opportunity from the ground up.
I work for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in addition to Newsmakers, and 2 of our icons, Reverend C.T. Vivian and Andrew Young, both said you're next.
Yes, they have given me an endorsement, and I think it's powerful. I'm honored and humbled to have their endorsement, but I think it sends a strong message that leadership knows leadership, vision knows vision, and in a time where we've got to work together as a community, where we've got to find the undiscovered country of opportunity, locked arm in arm, they believe that I'm the kind of leader that can do that, bring a city together, push a city forward and leave no one behind.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's City Council President Ceasar Mitchell. He's positioned, he's poised, and he says prepare to be our next mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maynard.
Now, officer, and my partner, Mr. Jim Welcome, with some closing comments.
I work with the most egotistical individual in the planet. My man, though, he gets it in. I have some thoughts about Ceasar Mitchell. He is probably the man, no, he's undoubtedly the man who should be the next mayor of the city. I think that if he doesn't become the next mayor of the city, it'll be primarily because he's too smart for the other people that's running and for the people who have to make the core decision. At the end of the day, the environment that has been created by the sitting mayor has created an environment where the next mayor of the city of Atlanta may not be a black male, may not be a black female. He doesn't work and play well with other black men. He never has, and he never will. Hence the problem that this man should be the mayor, and he should be help making him the mayor, because he's the man who's best suited for the job. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Newsmakers.
One of your best ones, Jim.